Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. I'm Paul Cavano, Head of Product Management at Comosoft, and I will be your host today. Today's webinar will be about the release of LAGO 5.15, which was released last week, and I would like to show you some of the main features of the 5.15 version. In the invite to that webinar, I already told you what topics I would like to cover, but I also brought a little surprise today, an additional feature that hasn't been announced, but that is something that many customers have been waiting for since the beginning of LAGO, so stay tuned for our final secret feature today. So let's start just right away and take a look at the first things that I would like to show you today. All right, so the first things that I would like to show you today are additional planning features that we implemented into LAGO PIM and LAGO Whiteboard. Now let's start with LAGO PIM. We implemented a feature in LAGO PIM that has been available in LAGO Explorer for a while already and is now also available in LAGO PIM, and that is the possibility to access component templates to do some sort of work preparation in order for your print publication. And as an example, I'll just jump into one of my master projects here. So here's a project that contains all of my elements of my specific project type. And if I go to all elements, and then I'll switch the language to English. I have to click. Here we go. You now have the possibility to access component templates. So first of all, let's pick one of those elements that I have. I have a protective glove here, just one of those. This is a completely new element that doesn't have any components yet. So let's wait for the element data to be loaded on the right side, and then we can see that my section with the components is still empty. I'm going to hide a few of those sections because we don't need to do anything with the workflow at the moment. Network is slow today. Here we go. And let's hide one of the things that we don't need. We don't need the element basic user fields, or maybe just the basic set assignments. No signed articles. We can see that there are no components available for that specific element yet. And now you got the possibility to show the component templates. If you click that, the bridge section will be replaced with the component template selection bridge, which basically mirrors what most of you already know from LAGO Explorer. So we have the possibility here to select a document template. In this case, I'm going to select this one here. You can filter by specific component type. So whether you only want to see text components or asset components or logo components. And in this case, I want to see just, well, let's just show all of them. I'll switch to my English variant. And then you got the tree of your component templates that you've built on your template document. So for example, I got several tags available here that I could assign, or I got specific folders that contain description component templates, etc. To create components, you simply drag and drop that component template onto the element. So if I want to add a description component for that specific element, I'll simply just drag and drop it onto here. And then you see the component setup dialog that you also know from LAGO Explorer, for example, where you can define things like the component name. So that is my description. Things like the category are pre-selected in case the component template has a category, target medium if you want to, and the status, so things that you can do for components when creating those. Of course, you can also select the variants in which you want to create the component in case it's a local component. You could also create global components if you want to, but in this case, I want to create a local component. And then you either hit the button again to hide the component template bridge, which will bring you back to the element settings, or if you select a different element, then the bridge will be reloaded for that new element, and you will see the element details again. And if I go to my protective glove F one more time and scroll down to my available components, we can now see that, well, let's hide workflow for the moment. We can see that one component has been created here. And of course, the next step then would be to go to the text editor and fill in the copy text for that specific text component. But that is a feature that was already available in previous versions. So what we added here is the possibility to access the component templates and create components from component templates in LAGO PIM as a pre-planning step for your print and e-commerce production, for example. In this case, I'm in my master project, so every kind of copy text that I'm creating here will be for all the channels. Now, since I haven't explained that, and maybe some of you are new to the webinar, in case you got any questions in between, feel free to type them into the chat. I'll have my chat on the second screen, so I'll look over there from time to time if there's any question. After every feature, I'll give you some time to maybe write some questions, since typing the questions usually takes a little bit longer than asking them verbally. Feel free to type them anyway. I will go back to the chat and see whether there are any questions in the meantime. Okay, so much for creating component templates in LAGO PIM. Now, what we also added is a new way of selecting existing articles and elements in LAGO Whiteboard. So I will switch my user to a different one. Switch to a different project type here. I will go to LAGO Whiteboard, and the specific user has a job in LAGO Whiteboard to assign products to pages. And everybody of you who already work with LAGO Whiteboard knows how you usually plan products to pages. You go to our so-called assignment mode. And in the assignment mode, you have several search types and several search scopes. So as search types, you have articles, quick search, and search folders, as well as elements, quick search, and search folders. Now for the quick search, as well as for the search folders, you're also able to select the search scope. Previously, you had 4 of those. So the PIM project is the master project that you have configured, or your SKUniverse, if you'd like to call it. The current project, of course, is the project in which the current page is assigned to. The current document is the current document. And if you select project, you were able to define a specific project in which you want to search for something. So if I go to quick search and to week 40, and I type Jägermeister, I can find a Jägermeister element in that specific project. Now, if I go to week, let's say 24 or 24, and I type Jägermeister, I also find the Jägermeister because it was also in week 24. Now, using this kind of feature, you were able to pick up elements, including their layout and their components from previous projects to a new project here in LAGO Whiteboard. But the challenge was that if you wanted to pick up a specific product, a specific element, you always had to know in which project that element was, because you were not able to search in all projects. So you always had to know, okay, I want to pick up the Jägermeister from week 40. So I had to remember that it was in week 40, which can be quite cumbersome. And this is why we now implemented a new search scope, which is called all. And if you switch to all, you can still filter by campaign if you want to. You can still filter by variant if you want to, but you cannot filter by project anymore, because this will search in all the projects. And if I search for Jägermeister now, you will see that I have multiple search results here. And we also implemented the possibility to display the project name here in the search result list. In order to see the project name in the search result list, you need to add this specific field into the central configuration section. The details can be found in the release notes. Now, here, as a result, I can see that my Jägermeister actually is not in just those 2 projects, it's in 5 other projects. And I can pick up from the project where I want to the specific data from. So just so that you see that this is pointing towards different elements, I'll pick up the Jägermeister from week 40, and I'll pick up the Jägermeister from week 24. It's not really a use case that you would do in a normal production, but just so that you see the difference. And if I go to layout mode, you can already see that the layout of these 2 are different. So this one was using a different text template. The image that was used on those pages is different. Well, the price tag was the same, but you can see that different components from different projects were picked up. So this allows you to really search in the complete database for existing elements and pick up the element, including the components, from any of those projects where you have found the element. The same works for articles. You can also pick up articles and search for articles in all projects if you want to. So this is available in assignment mode for elements and articles. All right, so much about the new and additional planning features in LAGO PIM and LAGO Whiteboard. What we also currently implement in LAGO PIM, which will be fully available in the first patch version of LAGO 5.15, is the possibility to do this kind of element pickup in LAGO PIM. So imagine LAGO Explorer, where you got two project views next to each other and you want to copy an element from one project to the other project. You don't want to do it in Whiteboard, you just want to copy the element in a data view. And for that, we also implemented this in, or we are currently implementing this in LAGO PIM as well. So you will have a search view like this, which basically looks like the assignment mode from LAGO Whiteboard, available in LAGO PIM as well. It's not completely done yet, but it will be with the first patch release. All right, now so much about the planning features. And now I'll switch to something which is a little bit more technical and not really for your end users. It's more for the administrators. And I think most of you are administrators. So I think this will come in handy, especially when it comes to troubleshooting or when you are in contact with the Comosoft support. It will also make our life a little bit easier on the Comosoft side. And that tool or that application is called LAGO Maintenance. LAGO Maintenance is a completely new servlet that is deployed in the Tomcat. So when you download a new LAGO 5.15 version, you will see that there is now a new application or a new WAR file called LAGO Maintenance that has to be dropped into the Tomcat Web Apps folder. It needs some basic configuration in the LAGO Applications properties. And once you have that, then you can access LAGO Maintenance. LAGO Maintenance can just be accessed by the URL, and then you see a login dialog, which looks a little bit different than the one from the real LAGO application. And there you can log in with a specific user there, and that's a LAGO user. But if I go and try to log in with this LAGO user, it'll not, oh no, sorry, this user does have the user rights, my mistake. I wanted to show you that a user is not able to log in, but anyway, I'll show you the configuration. In order to log in with the user to LAGO Maintenance, the user needs to have specific user rights. So these user rights are assigned in LAGO Admin, of course. So let's take a quick look at LAGO Admin. And I will go to my user roles. And I got a user role called super user. I got way too many user roles. And this user role has all the user rights. And in the section administration, you can see that there are 3 additional user rights now, which are called maintenance read, modify, and install. So you need those user rights in order to log into LAGO Maintenance. If you have an administrative user that is allowed to log in, you will be brought to the LAGO Maintenance user interface. And in that LAGO Maintenance user interface, there are at the moment 3 areas. One is property files, one is logs, and one is log settings. In property files, you have access to the property files of the different applications. Now, the files that you see here can also be accessed by the administration interface of the LAGO config server. But the LAGO applications properties cannot be accessed by the config server because it's within the Tomcat directory. And in this LAGO applications properties file, for example, you can configure where is the database, so the database URL, and what is the database username and password. But what you can see here is that in LAGO Maintenance, we do not display the usernames and passwords for additional security reasons. So those are crossed out. This is more about verifying whether all the settings are here, and maybe if there are any typos in the URL for LFS or the config server or LAGO link, all those important credentials, because if there's any mistake in the LAGO applications properties, the LAGO application will not run. LAGO maintenance can run, even though the LAGO applications properties may contain some mistakes, but all the other applications will not run. So this gives you an easy access to the LAGO applications.properties file. Same applies to all the other property files. So for example, if I go to my LAGO message bus properties file, which is in the config server, I can see all the configurations of my LAGO message bus. At the moment, just for viewing purpose. So you cannot modify the file here. If you want to modify it, you still need to go to LAGO config server. But as a general roadmap, we would like to move all of those file configuration things in the next month into LAGO maintenance, so that you have one area where you do all the server-side maintenance and you don't have to jump into the administration interface of the config server or to the log folders, etc., etc. So here you have access to all the property files that can be easily accessed here just for viewing purpose. In the section logs, and that is, I think, the single most important area that we have in LAGO maintenance at the moment, you can access the log files of the servlets. Now, from time to time, our professional service may request log files from you. For example, you're running into any kind of problem when doing something in LAGO Web, and then our professional service team is asking you to provide a LAGO log file from the server because we don't have direct access to your application server, for example. Or our IT department has, but for them it's more complicated because they need to run a Citrix client or whatever else, and you can easily access those files and attach those to the tickets. With LAGO maintenance, we can access the files ourselves now, and you can also do those without your server administrators, for example. And if I go to LAGO here, for example, you can see there's a list of log files. I'll just recently cleaned up my log folder. And if I want to see the log file from today, I'll just click on it and it will be downloaded. And then I got the log folder here on my server, and I can see there was some kind of error popping up this morning when I tried something new. So you got access to the log files here and can download them. And the same applies to the LAGO link log files, to the web service log files, the remote DB, message bus log files, the FS log files. So all the log files from those web server server-side clients that creating a log file are available here in LAGO maintenance. If you go to API logs, that looks a little bit different because the API doesn't create log files. The API is writing the log into a log database table. So there is a new API database logging table available. And in that database logging table, you can see things, for example, like the user that has performed the post request in this case. You can also see the IP address from which was this request was coming from, the URL that was used. You can see the header, you can see the body JSON, the response. In this case, there was a mistake that this asset type was not found when performing this API request. So we got API logging here. So in case you're using the LAGO API and you're running towards the question, is there any form of API logging available in LAGO? Yes, there is. It is logged in the database in the database table, and you can also access this using LAGO maintenance. What you can also do in LAGO maintenance, but not for all the servlets yet, is the following. For example, here in log settings, I can go to LAGO Web Services. You can see it's loading a little bit, and it'll show you the current log settings of the LAGO Web Services. Now, the log settings for the web services are configured in the LAGO Applications properties. So if I go to my LAGO Applications properties and I go to LAGO Web Services, I can see here are the logging settings. These are read from the web services when the application is started. So if you want to change the log level, you need to restart your Tomcat, which can be quite annoying when you are in the middle of production and you might only be able to do that overnight. LAGO maintenance allows you to change the log settings on the fly. So you can change the log settings here on the fly while the application server is running, while the servlet is running, while the users are working, and you don't have to restart your Tomcat. Of course, you still have to use this with caution, because if you turn on your database logging and you got 1,000 users on the system, that log file will increase in size pretty significantly, but you can do it here on the fly. Also may be helpful on test systems where you want to do a more in-depth log file and you don't want to restart your test system, you just want to do it on the fly. So for example, let's take a look if I do the following. At the moment, if I go to my LAGO, to my logs and my LAGO Web Services logs, and here's my log from today, and it'll currently show me as a last entry, I don't know, call is still alive, so there's just a heartbeat going on, nothing special. And now I'm going to perform a change in LAGO that triggers the LAGO Web Services. So for example, I'll change the document workflow status. So I'll go to a project and change the document workflow status. Now PIM, and let's pick that project that I've just used. Go to my documents, and there's my working page 2 to 3. And there I have the workflow status. I have to enlarge this a little bit. And I want to change the workflow status, and you can see that, oh, and this user doesn't have the right to change the workflow static. Perfect. So let's do it with this user here. Oh, this user will just do it by going to the job list and saying set job to done. Oh, this is why I was not able to change the workflow status, because I still have the page locked. It makes sense. So let me unlock the page quickly, and then I can change the workflow status. Now this triggers the LAGO Web Services. It just happened, and I don't really see anything in the LAGO Web Services log file. If I download it again and open it again, there it is, and I go to the end of the file, I don't really see anything special here instead of the heartbeat. Now, I will turn on database logging on the fly. So I will go to logging database low, which means please show me everything, save, and then I'll do the same again. I'll go to my project, page 2 to 3. Oh, sorry, I'll have to go to PIM. Can I change the status here in Whiteboard? And I'll go to my document, and let's see whether the user has the right to change the workflow status in this step. I fear this user doesn't, and I have to log out and log in with a different one, but let's see. No, that looks good. I'll change the status to the second one. And here we go on to the first one, save. Services are running. We change the workflow status. And now I'll go back to LAGO Maintenance to my web services log. You can see that file size has increased. I'll open the log file one more time. And if I go to the end of the file, you can now see that database logging is active. So now it's doing the database logging on the fly. I'll quickly change that back because otherwise my log file will increase too much, but this allows you to change the log settings on the fly. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's only available for LAGO Link and the web services. We're still working on providing that for the other servlets as well, but that requires some changes to the logging mechanism on those servlets. So for the LAGO log, which is quite important, as we know, you cannot perform the live logging change at the moment, only for LAGO Link and LAGO Web Services, but we will keep working on that to allow that for all the servlets. So that is LAGO Maintenance, completely new backend application for server administrators. I think what will be the most helpful for you and also for the Comosoft professional service team is the possibility to access the log files here. If you don't want to have anyone working in LAGO maintenance, there are two ways of doing this. Either you don't install the servlet, or if you only want to have specific users having access to LAGO maintenance, you can control this by assigning the specific user rights in LAGO admin. All right, so much for LAGO maintenance. And now I have something special as an additional feature that no one has ever tried when working with LAGO. And I'll just do something and then maybe you will see where this is pointing towards. I will switch to LAGO Explorer because it's best shown here. And currently in my view, I have a project type. That project type has multiple projects. I have my SKUniverse, which contains all of my elements. And I have a big book for office supply, which contains a subset of my elements. I got this SKUniverse opened here. I got all my elements of the SKUniverse here on the left side. And here I have all the elements of that specific project. And what you can see here is I got one element which is called Hammermill copy paper, or in German Kopierpapier. And this is an element, and I will go to the element in my master project, and I will change the name to Fantastic Copy Paper. Say OK. And I will refresh my element list in my other project, and the element name is updated. Now, for everybody of you who has been working with LAGO for quite a while, and for everybody of you who knows the feature scoping, this is something that may pop up a question mark above your head, because you know that you cannot scope element data across multiple projects. Well, now you can. With LAGO 5.15, we finally, and I'm very happy because I have had many customers asking for that, and I also personally was missing this feature. And now we finally have the possibility to perform global and all the other scopes on element level as well. The technical background that you know is that an element always receives a new ID in every new project. This hasn't changed. If we take a look at those elements, and where's my ID? Here's my ID in my master project. And if I go to my project here, you can see that this is a different element. For articles, this is not the case. Articles have the same ID across multiple projects, and that was the reason why we are always able to provide global scoping on article level, but not on element level. In order to use global scoping or variant type scoping on element level, there are some things that you need to keep in mind. The first one is you need to enable it. And as you might have guessed, you need to enable it in the central configuration. Now, in the central configuration section scoping, there are two new settings. The first one is element scoping use pool key, and the second one is article scoping use pool key. In order to use element scoping across multiple projects, you need to set this to yes. But what is a pool key? A pool key is a database field that tells LAGO that these elements belong together. So it must have the same value. That database field can, and that is the drawback at the moment, cannot be manipulated manually by the users. So in order to work with global element scoping at the moment, you need to import elements. So in this case, what I did was that for my office supply import configuration, at the last tab, I have a new field on element level, which is called pool. And previously, I was creating my elements using this element ID element user field, which is in my import file column 6. And I'll use the same field as the pool field, which can also be configured as a key if you want to. So you could use this as a key field for import and maybe save the user field if you want to. But you need to have an ID that identifies an element. Not everybody does have that. We have some customers who build elements within LAGO. For those, this feature does not yet work. We still need to have a solution for that. But for everybody who is importing elements, they can import their element identifier into the pool field. And of course, if you then copy an element within LAGO, that pool field will be copied as well. And the system knows that this element actually belongs to the other one. If you have this imported, and more specifically, if you have configured the new setting in the central configuration, only then, and you need the central configuration entry, only then you are able to configure new scopes on element levels. So if I go to my type editor and to my element fields, and there's my element field name, you can see that here I now have the possibility to define global variant type campaign, variant type campaign. So the 4 additional scopes that we have, and if you have cluster feature enabled, also the cluster scope, of course, then you are able to define the additional scopes. If you don't set the central configuration to use the pool key, then you will only have project and variant available, as it has always been the case in the last 25 years. But for everybody who is importing elements and creating elements during the import, this is something that comes in really handy, because if you import elements into a master project, you maintain data in a master project, for example, copy tags, headline, everything else, and element properties. You can then copy the elements or import the elements into additional projects. And if you change something in the master project, you can automatically scope this to other projects as well. Looks a little bit technical at first glance, but I think this is something that comes in really handy for many of you. So I'm really happy to have this feature now available in LAGO 550. So that's it for today's webinar. I will see whether there are any additional questions. So far there aren't, but I'll stay in the webinar for a few more minutes in case anything popped up. In case something pops up after the webinar, feel free to email me. My email address is well known to everybody of you. It's paul.cavano@comosoft.de. Feel free to reach out to our professional service team. And I'm happy to have everybody of you back in the next webinar. It seems like today all the questions were answered. So, well, thank you everybody for your attention. See you soon. Enjoy LAGO 515 with element scoping. And yeah, talk to you soon, and until the next webinar. Bye.